new glasses.
Yeah, you look pretty cute. Show me, look at the screen.
Just showing you from all angles.
Yeah, you look cute. You look really cute.
Thanks. So I can actually see.
Can you?
Yeah, like everything's very sharp.
Can you see
I
that?
can totally see that. Before, I had no idea.
How many hot fingers am I holding up? What'd you say?
I only need to wear them when I'm driving or watching TV.
You should put them on now.
No, because I don't need them just for walking around.
Good morning, you legends. It is a beautiful morning here in Melbourne today. It's really cold, but the sun is coming up and there's not a cloud in the sky. Yeah, it is freezing. Like for us in Melbourne, it's probably 3 degrees Celsius, maybe 4 degrees Celsius, whatever that is, 5. I like to exaggerate a little bit, you know. You never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Never.
I think Hanny should put her glasses back on. But you should put the glasses on so we can show everyone what you look like with the glasses, Han.
I think they've seen enough pictures of me with glasses, don't you think?
You reckon? Well, a lot of people aren't on my Instagram. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, Snapagram, InstaSnap, I'm going to have a word about what my thoughts on that too. You look cute as, man.
I look a bit nerdy.
Alright, see ya. So boys, I know it's not our area of expertise, but I will say, now that we're on the topic of discs, carbon wheels, you have the danger of these discs slicing through other riders in races. How do we overcome that? I mean, obviously they're clearly better braking, better, safer wheels in terms of stopping, but how do we stop them from injuring other cyclists in races?
The way I see it, first of all, we've got 5311 chain rings. The chain rings themselves are quite dangerous. We've got sprockets on the back that are moving as well. I'm not sure the danger is there. We have seen it slice people open, I guess, but is that an extreme case? I've seen chain rings in people's legs as well. So for me personally, I'd like to race with them for more of what Raoul said about the consistency of braking. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, the simple thing is put cover over it.
Put a cover?
Yeah. Just have...
Why aren't manufacturers doing this?
Oh, I don't know, maybe it's a bit of extra stuff, but I mean, that's a simple thing. Like, you know, you look at a motorbike and they've got covers on them. You know,
it's a simple answer.
So you just put a cover on them. So you could make a carbon fibre cover, which would be really light. I mean, that's the thing. The reason people aren't probably doing it is, oh, I'm going to add a weight to my bike. You know, it's just like.
And the looks. Cycling's about looks and looking good, fashion, and you're having a big plastic or a big carbon thing. But I guess we can make them look good and make that the norm.
Yeah. And then, you know, you put a cover around it, it's protected. It's just like
problem solved.
It's gone. You know. So, you know, you need to have a bit of airflow management as well. So, you know, have a few vents and stuff like that in it. But yeah, look, it's not a big deal. As I said, it's been happening on motorbikes for probably 50 years or something like that. So. Yeah, in a lot of ways, the bike industry trails at the back of, you know, a lot of other industries in this sort of regard. So
you potentially may have single-handedly ruined the carbon clincher business, but through, you know, honesty, obviously.
Oh, look, I think it's on the wall anyway. It's like because of the failures that they're having. So, like, you know, you talk to, you know, to any rim manufacturer. And they know it's a problem, and they're trying to get around it. Like, you know, the factory in Taiwan that does the drop braking service. That's their solution to try and get around it. Zip have got a high temperature resin to try and get around it. Everyone's trying to get around this problem. So, yeah, it's not that, you know, I'm just saying, well, there's a problem, you know, and it's just like they all know it's a problem, but you know, they're still happy to sell wheels. You know, it's like. While they're trying to solve the problem. So yeah. Well, I mean, they're a business. They've got to stay in business.
Yeah. One question I had is in terms of those disc, you know, we talk about putting covers over. Okay, so they're going to add a bit of extra weight to the bike. What about if you just blunt off the because they're quite sharp, those discs. So what if you blunt them somehow?
Well, absolutely. And you know, you can put a radius on that corner and remove that knife edge. The problem why it's not being done is it's an extra manufacturing step which costs money, and so everybody wants their parts as cheap as possible, and so the suppliers are trying to get the parts as cheap as possible. But there's the line of at what point do you say, okay, we're actually these parts are going to cost more and they're going to be significantly better. So there's that balance point, and so you've got companies at the full spectrum of that. Some are just trying to provide the cheapest product possible, and others are trying to provide a premium product, which for some people can't afford. And then there's that middle ground, and so you basically need the really big players, the big component suppliers, to just go, this is what needs to be done. You still probably have the lower end guys who would go, no, we can't afford to make parts at that cheaper spec. But yeah, I mean, it's just like cars. You've got cheap cars, you've got middle of the road cars, you've got luxury cars, and there's that whole range, that whole spectrum, which you work on, and there's a bit of market for everybody, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, Raoul. So there was a question in the comments on YouTube about spoke nipples, and I think this is something you know quite a lot about. And so for the beginners at home watching this, what are we talking about? Just can we summarise what we're talking about for someone that doesn't know what we're on about?
Yeah. So what's sort of been happening is that there's the spoke nipples on some of the carbon rims, particularly the internal ones, have corroded to the point that they actually crumble apart and fail, and then obviously the spoke can't do its job. So the wheel collapses. So it's corrosion. It's a corrosion thing, and there's a whole bunch of factors that can lead to that. If you live along the coast, which let's face it, we all sort of do. If you're right on the coast, you get more salt, salt spray. So riding like Beach Road, for instance, you get you're exposing yourself to a lot more corrosion than if you're riding up in the Dandenongs, just with a bit of distance. But so you've got this corrosion, and the thing is, it's a galvanic corrosion. We touched on that in the last video about being the aluminium and the carbon being at different levels of the galvanic scale, and setting up a battery when you have an electrolyte in there. So there's all this stuff about, okay, the nipples, the spoke nipples corrode. Envy had a recall and they replaced all their aluminium nipples with brass nipples. And it's sort of one of those things where everyone's going to the carbon wheels to have lighter weight, and everyone wants aluminium nipples for lighter weight. Brass nipples are 20 odd grams a wheel heavier or something like that, depending on how many spokes you have. And we were seeing wheels come in with this corrosion problem, and so I started looking at what was going on, and I found that the nipples that were a problem were an unanodized nipple. So you can anodize aluminium, which provides corrosion protection, and that sort of isolates some of these problems. The other thing is the different alloys. So the high grade alloys, and the best one is the 7075 aluminium, and that's really susceptible to corrosion. So like in the aircraft industry, 7075 is one of the primary structural alloys, but it's they really need to protect it from corrosion, so they do all these steps to avoid it. Anyway, the nipples that were being used were basically unanodized 7075 nipples. So what I ended up doing was I cut a section of carbon rim and had a number of different spokes and different nipples, and then I covered them with some of the Stan snow tubes sealant, which a lot of the mountain bikers use, and because mountain bikers were having a lot of problems, and people were thinking, oh, maybe it's the corrosion in the or the chemicals in the Stan's sealant, which is exacerbating the corrosion. Like if you have an acid or a base, you've got more ions basically for this transfer. So we did a test. So which is what I do. Like if I want to learn something about it, I'll do a test. Opinions You know, like one good test is worth 1,000 opinions, basically. So do a test and then you know. So yeah, so I did the test.
All right, and can you show us anything?
I can. So this was almost 2 years ago like in a couple of weeks it'll be 2 years that I started this test. So basically, and it's in this box just to sort of keep it in a environmental sort of humid sort of condition. Number of different spokes, a section of carbon rim, poured the sealant all over it. So you've got, you know, a brass nipple, a Taiwanese alloy nipple that's anodised, the unanodised internal nipple that was being used by Envy and Reynolds and a few others, a DT Swiss anodised, and a DT Swiss anodised with an aircraft corrosion inhibitor on it as well. So the results show brass was fine, even the plain anodised was fine, the internal was corroded, and the other two were fine. So in this test, the only one that corroded was the unanodised internal nipple. So the other problem with the internal nipples was that you can't see them because there's no evidence of corrosion because it's all inside.
Yeah.
So with the other nipples, if you're riding in really salty environments and you're exposing yourself to this type of corrosion, that at least with an external, you'll start to see signs of typically a white powder. You know, the problem is when you drill a hole through the carbon, so you've got exposed carbon fibres, and then if you've got aluminium in contact with that and you get any sort of electrolyte, you're going to get that galvanic corrosion. So, right down the base, you can see the corrosion.
So this one here is the one that's corroded?
Yeah.
And that is which brand is that?
That's the internal one that Envy and Reynolds and a few others were using that had the corrosion problem.
Okay, and the rest of these were fine?
The rest of them been okay, yeah. So, the next test really, this has been almost 2 years in this container of sealant. So it highlights really the sealant isn't causing a major problem because, people were having these problems much quicker than that. So the next step is really to ramp up the test, a la Mythbusters. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And maybe just ramp it up with another like an acid or something like that, which is really aggressive, and see what level of protection you can get with different materials. But it's been more of a problem off-road, and that's why people were suspecting the sealant.
Yeah. Why is that?
Oh, look, I think they just ride in wetter conditions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the mud and those sorts of things, you tend to it tends to accumulate more. And they probably don't wash their bikes as much either. Yeah. Not as fastidious how the bike looks.
It's been a pretty amazing talk in Raoul's office, but I think the best way to wrap this little chat up is to really summarise what makes a good wheel.
You've got all these components that put together. You've got the hub, you've got the spokes if it's a spoke wheel, you've got the rim, and you've got the tyre interface. And it's how all those pieces combine to provide the outcome that you're looking for. So often people will just say, I want a stiff wheel. I really like this wheel because it's so stiff. But it's not simple like that. Sometimes, and in a lot of cases, actually, having a less stiff wheel is faster. So
why?
Because it gives you more traction. So the same reason why you have suspension on like mountain bikes have suspension, road motorbikes have got suspension. Like MotoGP bike has got suspension, and it's absolutely critical. And they're racing around a flat track, right? Why do they have suspension if it's not better? They have suspension because it's better, because it gives them more grip, more traction, go faster.
Are we going to see road bikes with suspension?
I think you will, yeah. And I think the trend is already coming, and it's and that's where the beauty of carbon is. You can build a bike which has got some compliance in it in a vertical plane, but it's very torsionally stiff. So you get the direct power transfer, but you get a little bit of compliance in it. And that's what they found with the motorbike stuff, that they could make the chassis on these MotoGP bikes out of any material. The budget wasn't an issue. They could use steel, aluminium, titanium, carbon, whatever they wanted. And what they found with the carbon was the advantage is that you can tune the weight flexes, but also the damping of that flexing. So it's not just a spring. Like if you get a typical suspension is like a metal spring. Like on your car, you suspend a metal spring with a damper, and without the damper, the thing's just going to bounce and bounce and bounce. So you need that damper to control the way the thing bounces. And so coming back to wheels, that's the massive advantage on a carbon rim over a metal rim is a well-designed carbon rim. You can tune that damping. So, I mean, we've done hundreds of, like 220 odd lateral wheel tests. So I've got a wheel stiffness jig where I can test what the lateral stiffness of a wheel is, and then you can then measure not only the stiffness, but you can then measure the return rate. And so when you're leaning the bike into a corner, the bike frame, even on a road frame, but particularly on a mountain bike frame with suspension, you've got that vertical compliance in the suspension, or in a road frame, it's designed for a little bit of vertical compliance. But when you're leaning the bike over, you're relying on the lateral movement of the wheel to maintain contact with the ground. And so if you have a wheel that's too stiff, you'll get bucked off, right? So picture riding double disc wheels on cobbles. Not very comfortable. And you'll go slower because you're getting bounced around because the wheel is so stiff. So that's why, like at Roubaix, they tend to run shallow section, softer wheels because it's faster, because you get more grip.
Right.
Because your wheel's in contact with the ground more. So the whole point, like with your tyre interface, it's all about maintaining a consistent contact pressure on the ground, and that will give you less tyre deflection, which tyre deflection absorbs energy. So you want this consistent. It's called a contact, like a contact force on the tyre. And so, we've done all this measurement, with accelerometers and things like that, where we can actually start measuring some of these forces as you're riding your bike down the road. And we've done tyre contact patch measurements, and it all comes back to getting that consistent tyre force, and then you go faster because you get more grip.
Amazing.
That's brilliant.
Pretty amazing, really. Well, in summary from our little discussion this morning, I would say that if you were a bicycle manufacturer, a carbon bicycle manufacturer, you are crazy if you do not hire this man immediately. All right, legends, to finish off our little interview with Raoul on the carbon wheels, we're going to have a look at his wheel stiffness jig.
Yeah, so this is a jig here. It's basically just a heavy steel frame. Load the wheel in here, it gets locked into position, sort of like a really heavy-duty touring jig, if you like. And then we put a known load on this point here. We've got a dial indicator, and basically, by measuring the load, we can see what the deflection is. And so, we've tested all different spoke combinations and what actually makes and affects the stiffness of a wheel. So, people think it's higher spoke tension. Spoke tension's got nothing to do with the stiffness of the wheel. So it's the amount of spokes, the type of spokes, the material of the spoke. Even the rim has got a little bit of effect, but not as much as as what people think. It's primarily the spokes and the hub design which affect the stiffness of the wheel.
Is that right? I thought the more spokes, the better.
More spokes, is better, but not spoke tension. So once you're above a threshold in spoke tension, it doesn't make any difference. So it's all having. If you got more spokes, like a 32 spoke wheel is stiffer than a 24 spoke wheel. All else being equal. So I mean, I remember when I first started racing, back in the late 80s, and we were debating whether a 32 spoke wheel was going to be strong enough to race on, because we were all racing on 36 spoke wheels. Right. And so the materials have come a long way since then, the reliability of the spokes and things like that. And I mean, I've been to spoke factories in Taiwan, and it's just nuts seeing these. Each machine could make a spoke and a nipple every second, and they had 56 machines running 22 hours a day.
Are they good quality?
Yeah,
they're okay.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
They're good.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I've done a lot of testing on spokes as well. Like I've got a jig which I can test the tensile load of spokes and rim pull throughs and all that sort of stuff. So it comes down to testing. So that's. The only way you're going to know something is if you test it. So that's what we do.
So that's that there is the deflection in millimetres.
Yeah. So as I push down, you can see that change. Yeah. So it's this is just a standardised test. And we've got 222 wheels in our database that we've tested.
Okay, who gets a test done like this? Is it a manufacturer or is it general punter?
This is just for our own knowledge base. This is something that I've done I've borrowed wheels off people, and I've built wheels and tried different things just for my own understanding on what makes a good wheel. I've been consulting to some wheel brands, and I want to know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not the sort of person who just goes in and guesses and bluffs. Like, I'll test something and then understand what's going on. So that's why I've done it. So that's why there are all these 200 odd wheels. It's my own knowledge on what makes a good wheel. Yeah,
fantastic. Raoul, thank you very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it as usual. And what's the next instalment? What are we going to do next time?
Well, there's lots of stuff to do, isn't there? It's like, we've got to fix your drone.
That's so true. So, as you guys know, my drone is cooked. This will probably be another episode, but Raoul is talking about making a frame for the drone. So wait, that could be on the cards. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll let you know what the next instalment with Raoul and Shane is. You could talk to Raoul about, that exit sign up there, and we'd probably talk for about an hour on it. He's that knowledgeable on all things.
But it would be interesting. I want to know about Raoul talking about that exit sign.
Yeah, so would I.
Fascinating stuff.
Well, guys, let me just check if the sound is on. Well, guys, that was, again, another amazing video from Raoul and Shane asking some great questions. So I hope you enjoyed that. We've got a couple of things we were talking about at the end there. We were talking about doing a night where we sit down, we have Raoul, Shane, myself, maybe a couple other guest speakers, and we can have people come in and ask us questions. So we're going to tee something like that up in the next 6 weeks. Let us know in the comments below if that's something that would appeal to you guys. So yeah, I reckon a night where we can ask some questions, get a few people there and answer some questions would be fantastic. The other thing I was going to mention is let us know what you'd like. We're thinking about doing this on a regular basis, doing a tech segment. So let us know in the comments below what you'd like to hear in the next segment. We talked a little bit about power meters towards the end there, but we didn't turn the camera on. So that could be something. But I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks, Shane, for all your input.
Cheers.
And until tomorrow, we'll see you guys then.
Welcome to the cycling moment.
Now I can see properly.
Yes. So what I feel is...
Mate, I reckon those glasses look better on you than Hattie.
I agree. 100% agree. Cheers to that.